right, everything is coming together. Everything is coming together. It's a new Celtics beat. Adam Kaufman, you know that. Evan Valenti's back with us. He's back from his vacation. And the second he returned, it seemed like things, just started improving for the Celtics again after his, trip totally derailed them and injured Rob Williams. We talked about that last week.
Oh, he's to blame?
He's the reason. Chris Forsberg, that other voice that you're hearing in NBC Sports Boston. How are you, man?
Now I'm angry.
Yeah, he's the culprit.
Evan's fault. I actually was pinning the blame on myself. I had to do sideline for a couple games, and I think my first game, that Timberwolves game, was the night he got hurt, and so that blood is on my hands. It feels only appropriate that somehow my excitement was just too much for Time Lord's meniscus to handle, and so I'll take the blame. Ev. You're off the hook.
Some sort of alternate timeline like out of Doctor Strange was created just by your passion, your level of excitement. It just messed up everything.
Blew out his knee. Literally, his meniscus was like, there's an energy in this building that I cannot harness. And it just shredded. Luckily it was only a minor tear. I've kept it in check enough that he will be able to return in the playoffs.
Yeah, so you're the bad luck guy. I appreciate the fact you're stepping up for that. That's one of my favorite low-key scenes of Celtic Pride is when they have the Jazz jerseys on, and they're like, who have we been rooting for the entire time? The Celtics. And who hasn't won anything? Oh, yeah. I didn't want to say anything to you, but we knew you guys were the bad luck guys. Classic.
I just want to put out, because we could go on and on about Celtic Pride. Who wouldn't? I mean, it's on the shelf here behind me, naturally. But I just look, it's Masters Week, so just real quick in the wake of the most recent game, golf clap for the Celtics for the good looking loss in Milwaukee. Just a beautiful performance for those of you. And I'm honestly, I've been tweeting about this. I'm not one of these people, but for the people out there that have been. And they're all over my mentions, you guys as well, I'm sure. They've been so paranoid about seeding and looking for the perfect outcome down the stretch that, look, last night was exactly what you wanted. You rest Al Horford, you rest Jason Tatum, the other guys go out there. They, it's a good confidence builder for some of the reserves. Great game for Peyton, Sam Hauser. Not that his number's probably going to be called in the playoffs, but some of these guys, important minutes, important responsibility, and they fall just short and in all likelihood avoid the Nets in the first round. So win-win.
I can't go the golf clap route for that. So I'm a little bit torn. Part of me says I understand the benefits of the 3 seed, but I also think it's kind of foolish to be trying to dodge the 25th ranked defense in the NBA. And I know the Nets have superstar talent, and you never want the opposing team, especially in round 1 of the postseason, to have the best player on the floor, which Kevin Durant would be by his just general status in the NBA. But I also think the Celtics kind of roll through that matchup. The Nets are paper thin. They have no defense. And, if Durant steals them a game, then maybe it's a gentleman's sweep. Maybe Kyrie brings his sage one night and it's a 6-gamer. But I think we shouldn't obsess about that, because I think the Celtics, with the way they've played over the past 12 weeks now, have asserted themselves as the team that everybody else in the NBA should be going, man, we don't want to play them. And if I'm the Brooklyn Nets, I'd be like, maybe we lose that first game of the play-in and slide to the 8th seed, because we'd much rather face the Heat than the Celtics the way they're playing. But, whatever, if it ends up being 3, it's not the worst spot, as you say, especially after you saw what the Celtics did to the Bulls the other night. That's a fortuitous first-round matchup. The only part I hate is then having to play Milwaukee in round 2 and not having home court advantage. But as you said, maybe some of these role players got a little juice going up there and playing well here to close out the regular season.
So what you just said about the Nets, it's we've talked about it a lot on this podcast in recent weeks. I've been of the mind, kind of like you play who you're going to play. I think the Celtics shouldn't be afraid of anyone. I think they're capable of beating anyone. I tweeted as much yesterday before that game. But by the same token, to hear you say that you think that they would roll the Nets, I think they could beat them. I absolutely think they could beat them. But when you've got Durant on the other side, you've got Kyrie on the other side, and there's always the revenge narrative with him, obviously. You have him able to play home games. You don't, in all likelihood, and we'll get to this, but you don't in all likelihood have Rob Williams in the first round, and you believe they'd roll Brooklyn.
Yeah, Scal got on me about it last night because I said I think I went full steamroll, and he was like, you can't use that word when you talk about Kevin Durant. Has Kevin Durant ever been steamrolled in the playoffs? And I said, that's a great point. Like, I don't know, maybe like early Oklahoma City when they were all kind of just finding their way, maybe they had a bad playoff series, but certainly when he's been out there, it gives them a chance every night. That being said, like, their defense is trash. Like the way the Celtics are playing offense right now, the ball movement, the way they could exploit matchups, Ime's intricate knowledge of the inner workings of the Nets.
Sure.
I do not see that series being particularly close. Now, would Durant steal them a game? Of course. And I relent that it could go 6, it could go 7, whatever. But I just don't think it would be as close as, like, people have this fear that the Celtics would lose that series. And I don't know, like, nothing about the last 12 weeks should make you feel that way. And I'm all for easing the path, but I'm a whole lot more worried about the Bucks and how you line up with them potentially in round 2 than I am about whoever you got to go through in round 1.
Well, at least it's not Toronto.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you say that, but like, there's still some scenarios.
It's true.
So
that's true. Here is actually what it looks like for anyone that hasn't been paying attention. And you've been tweeting about this. Everyone's been tweeting about this. 1 game left. It's Sunday in Memphis. Some of these dominoes are going to unfold even before that tip-off rolls around. But as we sit here right now, Seas have clinched home court, of course, in the first round of the playoffs. They're starting in about a week, so we'll have another show to preview that, whoever the playoff opponent is before that rolls around. But they can still finish 2nd, 3rd, or 4th in the East, again, right now, as the Bucks, Sixers, Raptors, and, of course, the Seas, they're all jockeying for seeding. Mark D'Amico, who I think is fairly plugged in, tweeted this. I'm just banking on him being accurate. If the Celts win on Sunday, they can finish no worse than the 3rd seed. If they win on Sunday and Milwaukee loses to either Detroit or Cleveland, Boston gets the 2 seed. If they lose Sunday and Philly and Milwaukee win out, Boston is the 4th seed. So again, the math, and you wrote this on Twitter earlier today, Chris, the math obviously favors a Celtics Bulls first round matchup. But what are we rooting for? What do we want right now?
yeah, I think that's what you want, and again, you're kind of courting the Bucks there in round 2, but if you're making your first round life a little easier, maybe you're just like, you're going to have to go through them at some point, and maybe something wild happens on the other side of the bracket. Hey, maybe you're sitting here and thinking the Nets are going to push them pretty hard in round 1 if that's the 2-7 matchup, and that maybe you'll be able to pounce if you kind of cruise through round 1, which based on the other night against the Bulls would probably be the likelihood of how that plays out. So you can feel, I think, you can feel pretty good. Like, certainly I'll relent that it's the easier path drawing the Bulls. I think even Toronto, the problem with Toronto is you bring in all these storylines about who's eligible to go north, and it becomes more of a spectacle than it would be. And like, Siakam's playing better, and they're just a frisky team. That being said, the Celtics sent their JV squad up there and almost took a game when the Raptors really needed it in that stretch. So I feel confident with that matchup. That's why I keep coming back to. I'm not really worried about round 1. It's what happens from there. What happens, like, you're getting Raw back. How much of a boost does that give you? And like, how does that progress forward? And can this team get back to playing the elite level of defense we saw? And what does that do for you? So those are my bigger questions than how this all spills out in round 1. But I get it. Like, there's just in a normal year, we probably aren't thinking about all this, but the play-in's added a complication and COVID's added a complication. But I like Celtics Bulls is probably if you rewind the tape as much as like probably 6 weeks ago, I think when they started asking us who's the ideal playoff team, it's the Bulls or Cleveland, because the Cleveland doesn't have any experience and can't play offense good enough to win a playoff series. And the Bulls are just so exploitable on defense based on their weak links on the court.
Yeah, then you have last night, of course, against the Bucks, where the Celtics don't have Horford or Rob or Tatum, and they go toe to toe with the Bucks in Milwaukee. So it's not like this Celtics team can't hang with Milwaukee either. I mean,
second really back to back too.
Yeah, it's all going to come down to health and how healthy are the Celtics. If the Celtics are as healthy as they can be, I don't think they should be really afraid of anybody at this point. I've been so impressed with how they've been able to really fine tune their offense. I mean, we all knew that this was going to be a defensive heavy team. They proved that the past couple of months that they are one of the best defensive teams in the league, but the offense has been just spectacular. And you go back to, and I love listening to Gorman and Scal on the broadcast, because Gorman and Scal at times like can't even contain how happy they are to watch this team move the ball in offense. That Chicago game was just wonderful. I mean, it was really something else. I mean, we had that Minnesota game was ridiculous. They had a game against Utah that was like the best start to a game I've ever seen. Like it was insane what they were doing to Utah. So I think offensively, this team has taken another leap, and be able to hang with, Toronto -4 of their starters, or to hang with Milwaukee -3 of their starters. It's just really a testament to how well this team is coached up right now, how focused they are, and how well everybody understands their role. And I think as we head to a playoff series with the Bulls potentially here, I mean, that team, just look at my fingers on that one. That's going to be a nice, easy way to settle into playoff basketball. But that next round matchup, as long as Boston's healthy, I love their chances against anybody. I think just with the way they can create offense with both Jalen and Jason on the floor right now. Smart is doing a great job orchestrating everything as the point guard. Pritchard spacing the floor. Grant spacing the floor really well. Derek White's hitting shots. Like we said with Mike the other day, like, is the only thing this team is missing is Derek White hitting shots. And if Derek White hits shots, are they just clearly better than everybody else? I mean, now that he's starting to hit 40-50% of his threes, Chris, this team looks insanely crisp right now.
Yeah, and I keep telling people that the offensive progression is way more noticeable to me, or way more of a storyline, because that was the one thing. Even when they had the number one defense in the league, I said, you're not winning a title with the 20th ranked offense and efficiency. And I thought they'd get better, but I didn't think they'd be the best offense in the NBA since January 23rd, when Smart comes back from COVID and Tatum pushes the launch button on his usual second half surge. And so, I mean, that's huge for this team to be able to play the way they have. And it is really noticeable. And again, I think that's what's so magical about this season is everything we thought we knew about the Celtics through January 6th, and like how maddening it had been. And not just this year, but like pretty much the totality of 2 full seasons of 500 basketball. It was like, they just can't play offense the right way. They don't want to move the ball. They play ISO. It's never going to come together. And then all of a sudden, like, it came together. And like, credit to Ime for getting them to buy in. Credit to the guys for not settling and sort of figuring it out. But it's been really magical to watch. And I keep telling people, I don't know what's going to happen in the playoffs. The East is better. It could get crazy. You never see the end coming as quickly as it does. It's abrupt. I know the playoffs take like 8 years to play, but it's still like abrupt when it ends. And but like, this has been something like I have never been a part of a season like this. Now, IT years were magical in their own way. I was around at the end of the 08 title run, and that was it special in its own way. But this is like so unexpected that I hope people take a moment to be like, hey, this is really fun. Like, let's enjoy this. Even the losses are good right now, which is just never happens. So take a minute. I keep thinking of Ferris Bueller, and when Matthew Broderick says, like can move pretty fast. If you don't, slow down and take a look around once in a while, you might miss it. And I'd hate for the last 41 games to just sort of be an afterthought, because we're all heightened expectations now.
So let me put a couple numbers out there, and you're well aware of this, Chris. I saw you put this on Twitter yesterday. I think it was the Celtics, or a couple days ago when they won their 50th game. The Celtics were 18-21. They were 11th in the Eastern Conference. Fast forward a few months, obviously they jump up to now possibly a 51 win season. Second in the East could happen, obviously, whether you want third or not. They could finish in second in the East. It's their best regular season anyway, since going back to the 2017-18 season, which was a year of sort of magical, unrealized or
Kyrie honeymoon
moments. Yeah. Well, and Kyrie goes down, he gets hurt, Hayward goes down, and then it's the young guys, it's the Jays carrying them into a playoff run where they finished within minutes of beating LeBron in Game 7 of the conference finals, very nearly, reached the NBA finals to play Golden State, a team that, many people will still say to this day they think the Celtics would have won that series because of how Boston matched up with Golden State. People want to believe it. I'm not saying I believe it or you believe it or Evan believes it, but people out there, they've talked themselves into, what that season obviously could have been. But we're sitting here, you outline the turnaround over a few months. Your colleague and a friend of this pod as well, Abby Chin, she put out, courtesy of Dick Light the other day, that 17 blowouts of 20 plus points this season. That's the most since that 07-08 campaign. As we all know, Celtics won a championship. And I don't want to be that guy, Chris. There's already another Adam on the Boston airwaves that is that guy. But I feel like after the conversation we've had for the last 10, 15 minutes, I have to at least ask, I mean, we're sitting here ready to fire up the duck boats and let's have a parade, through Boston and everything. What's missing? What can derail this? What can make this go wrong? Despite all of us believing the ceiling is so high, even without Rob back yet.
Yeah, so I think a couple things. One, the East is really good. Like, it's weird to sit here and say that the Celtics won't have the best player on the court in a handful of matchups, even though they have Jason Tatum, who might just be close to a top 5 player now. But when you have to go through Embiid and possibly Durant and obviously Giannis, like it's just tough. So I think that adds a complication to everything. The Bucks have been there and done it. That experience matters. Like, Tatum and Brown have gotten experience, but this core, still hasn't quite been as a whole been through it. So that sort of matters. I worry about crunch time offense, not so much last night because you don't have your horses. Like, it's different if you had Jason Tatum out there in the final minutes, but just in general, they haven't played a lot of close games, and every game in the playoffs sort of feels like it's close. So, Giannis is going to be good in those moments. Will Tatum and Brown rise to that challenge? I'm optimistic based on what we've seen, but it hasn't happened often enough in the handful of crunch time games they played. Ime is a first time coach. That matters. Like, hate him as much as you want when he's stomping up and down the sideline and making crazy expressions, but like, Nick Nurse has won a title and has junked up games with zone defenses, and that matters. Spoelstra has been there. I think Ime gets a huge chunk of why they're so good this year, but got to prove it on the playoff stage. His first time as the head guy dipping his toe in there. Is he ready to make adjustments as quick as he's going to have to, and all those little things. So there's like all that factors into it. Health, like, heaven forbid the Celtics have to go through something else. They're not very deep. As good as we can love it when Hauser comes off the bench, you don't want to be leaning on him for 25 minutes a night in a playoff game. And Neesmith hasn't been ready for that challenge yet. And so there's little things that could complicate the path. But ultimately, I resolve back to this: like, what we've seen the last 12 weeks, the Celtics are a championship contender. And I again, because I'm trying to savor the experience, I don't get too obsessed about like where it ends. I'm just going to try to enjoy it and see where it goes. And if they get to the East Finals or into the finals, like, that's amazing. But that they're even there is just absurd on its own. So just as my dog is fired up about it too. So
really excited.
So we'll see where it goes. And hopefully I just want, it's lame because, like, there's that meme where the girl's like, I just hope both teams have fun. But I really do hope that the Celtics just go out there and make this interesting, because I couldn't have envisioned this 90 days ago.
What about your guy? You are the well-renowned Rob Williams fan club president. Are we, everything that we hear from Ime, from, I think some of the players have weighed in from time to time. Obviously, Brad Stevens on the radio this morning. Everyone is super positive about where Rob is in his progression in his rehab from surgery after repairing that torn meniscus. Already back working out, in good spirits. He's walking around like nothing's bothering him. When do you think we'll see him on the court?
So here, my thing has been, he will be ready for basketball, based on everything I've heard and been told and can gather, 3 weeks from the injury. And so now they set a 4 to 6 week timeline for him. I think what that does is, like, 3 weeks, he's kind of ready, and then you're just ramping him up. And okay, how does he feel right there at that probably end of that 3rd week? Where are you? Are you in a game 6 or a game 7? Are you confident that Rob can help you even in a smaller dose at that point? And so they'll cross that bridge when they get there. Now, if they roll in the first round, it makes it easier. You're probably going to get 4 weeks until the start of the next round, depending on how quickly these first round series go. So, but I mean, the fact that everyone that I've talked to has sort of put it at the front of that timeline and not the back of it is really optimistic. Again, the fact that, like, less than 24 hours after surgery, he was in the facility and just, starting to get the getting some flexibility in there. Shows up at his press conference a couple of days later, clutching a basketball as if he's just like has no idea what to do with his hands otherwise. So yeah, I'm really bullish on the fact that if needed, he might be able to be. I mean, the guy played a playoff game against the Nets last year on 9 toes. I know everyone likes to kind of question his toughness and all that, and I can't get inside that body and tell you like what his knees must feel like, considering how athletic and explosive he is. But I know the dude wants to play, and it was probably tough just to even cross that bridge. Like you heard him say in his press conference that when he tore it, and he doesn't know at that point what's going on, but he's scared almost because he doesn't want to go find out. Like he doesn't want that bad news after the year he's had. So Rob will be out there when needed, and if the Celtics get to round 2, he's going to be needed. So I have full confidence. The other thing I'll say is, like, I was really worried, like, because I'm not a doctor and I don't know, like, do you tear your meniscus? Are you the same explosive kind of player? And everyone has told me, like, don't worry about that. Like, he'll be able to do Rob things. Then he shouldn't have fear of it. It's just a matter of, it's just a little bit of pain tolerance. That knee, like, they took a little piece out, and that's weird for your knee, and you got to get used to it. And there's not as much cushioning in there now. And so it's just a matter of, like, how he's feeling. But I'm pretty bullish that he is going to be vintage Rob once he's ready to go.
Yeah, with vintage Rob too, they're just a whole different animal. I mean, that's he unlocks a lot of what they do on both ends. I mean, his passing is big, is ridiculous. His cleaning up on the offensive rebounding of things is unbelievable, and it's something that they've clearly missed. A guy that can finish defensive possessions either with a block, a steal, a rebound. I mean, they've been able to. I've been impressed with how they've fared without him.
Shout out Tice.
Yeah, I mean, Tice has been. And I was actually really mad about this when people were like, why would they get Daniel Tice? And I'm like, do you understand that the improvement of backup minutes going from Cantor to Tice is an insane number? I mean, the amount of confidence I have in the fact that the offense defense can function as a whole with Daniel Tice there versus, Enes Kanter is unbelievable. They've needed the Tice trade. It's been wonderful to have him back. He had 23 last night. He had his career high. It's the familiarity with him and the offense and the players. It's really smart. Everything they've done this year from a team building standpoint has been really smart. They've had good development from guys. I mean, this has just been well put together. But Rob's the big key here. And if they have a healthy Rob Williams, they're a legit title favorite. If they don't have Rob, things are a little bit harder. But if they have Rob, with certain guys, whether it's Giannis or Bam, those guys that are bigs that just give Boston hell, and Bam gives everybody hell, and Giannis gives everybody hell. But having Rob as a guy who floats and can help out on weak side blocks, and can take on guards in the perimeter, it just makes life a lot easier for you. And I'm trying very hard not to get too excited about everything. I'm trying to temper my expectations, but every quote you see and everything you hear, and including what you just said, Forsberg, I don't know, I expect them to kind of be back way earlier than and way more effective than I would when it originally happened. Again, I was on vacation. I had both Greeny and Kaufman roasting me as I sit on the beach and not care at all. But it was a little tough to get through. My girlfriend thought it was hilarious. But since that, we've had some clarity on the injury itself and all. It's just been good news after good news after good news, and especially on a team where we've had nothing but bad news for the past 3-4 years. It's just, I'm still a little uneasy. I'm still a little gun shy, Chris. So I appreciate you carry the torch.
Completely understandable. You were saying how some centers give us trouble without Rob. Dwayne Dedmon looked like an all-star going against the Celtics back line when they didn't have Rob there. So I agree. The one number I always go back to is the Celtics with their 5, the Infinity Stones out there have a defensive rating of 97. And without Rob, it jumps to 116. It's just an insane jump. And again, I can make a really great case for why Rob should be in that Defensive Player of the Year conversation, why he should be all defense, easier than I can, because there's more metrics that I can point to than with Marcus Smart. All that being said, it's just, they need everybody healthy to have the most success. And that's why, I keep going back to Grant's Marvel Comics universe there, because that's what they need. If everyone's healthy, they have a chance. If they don't, it gets decidedly more complicated. But outside of maybe Tatum, no one is more important to this than Rob. And so really hope he can get out there and just do the stuff. I hadn't been sidelined a lot. I hadn't been courtside. I've been in a studio for a lot of the last 2 years. That Minnesota game, the first 3 quarters before Rob got hurt, I'd never not having seen the Celtics up close like that. I was like, oh my God, this is insane. This is not the Celtics team that I last saw. And I'd been there in January for a Pacers game. It wasn't even close. If all those guys are healthy, they're as good as they've looked over these past 12 weeks.
I want to mention this just before we get out of here, and we won't have a long conversation about it because I don't think it'll be relevant, quite frankly, in the playoffs, because these teams, they won't be back-to-backs and all of that. And, I think there will be more of a preservation of health. But what do you attribute to, I'm trying to think of the right way to ask it. What do you attribute to the fact that, like, it drives me crazy, the fact that it seems like Ime, the sort of the only lingering Ime complaint I have right now.
Playing guys too long?
Oh, just it's like it's and I don't think this is true, but it's like he views his bench like the three of us are on it. Like there's just, it'll be 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They're up 26 points and he's got his starting five out there. Like, let's go. Let's God forbid in that situation, Jalen goes down awkwardly when he doesn't need to be out there in the first place. And it's just fortunately they've avoided anything, obviously, but there have been so many instances of this during this run in the second half of the year. It drives me up a wall.
So the couple things I would say is I agree. There are instances where I think he's gun shy. There was that one game early in the year. Portland, was it? Like somebody had a crazy comeback again, and they had
put
to
your
put all
starters
the
back in.
I know. Yeah, but I think he hates that more than actually having to scold the bench. It's annoying to have to get those guys the downshift, and then you have to throw them back out there. I think the other thing is I think his guys want to play. I honestly think there's been instances where, and Jalen said it's not true, but there have been times where he's gone back in with 28 points and 5 minutes to play. And I'm like, that's weird. And then he gets 30 and all of a sudden he's back on the bench. That thing does matter to guys. And whether they should care about it or not, Ime is at least aware of it. And that's part of the reason he's a sort of a player's coach. He might push you hard, but he also understands that if you can get your games played incentive, or if you can get to a certain benchmark of points in a game, he'll let you go do it. And there's a balance there for me. I'm okay if the players just wants to play. Guys want to play. And I think one of the greatest things about Jason Tatum and why he should be in the conversation for more awards than even people are giving him credit for is the fact that he's available all the damn time, except when he has COVID, and that matters. So I'm cool with it. I when Rondo was assist chasing. That whole double-digit assist streak drove me nuts because it was so nothing, But it's things like guys wanting to go back in and finish off a game, and hey, if the player's on board with it. But yeah, I mean, there are times. Now I say that, but if Rob came back, I'd be put him in bubble wrap from 12 minutes on the clock if you have to, and you're up 15. So it's a balance, but he should trust those bench guys. Hauser's perfectly fine. He's gonna go shoot some rainbows to the moon and knock it down. And
Pritchard, White, Grant, these guys, they can carry you in a fourth quarter with 8 minutes left and you're up 20-something points. I'm okay with that.
Maybe they'll get a chance to do it on Sunday, depending on what you need to happen to come out of to get your preferred seating in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I mean, Lord knows who's even going to play in that game, obviously, because like Ime said, Memphis is already locked into its spot too. But we'll find out soon enough. The next time we have one of these shows next week, it'll be a playoff preview. We'll look ahead beyond the play-in tournament, hopefully, and see who's coming up next for the C's. Should be a good time, and hopefully end on a high note, get to that 51 win season. We can just go in all positive and giddy and happy and green rimmed glasses and all that stuff, guys.
If you're not watching the YouTube video, Evan just hit the flex that Keon Dooling and Marquise Daniels used to do whenever there was the Celtics were cruising back in the day. So yeah, someone's fired up for the playoffs.
Need Keith's necklace though. That was legendary.
When I think of successful Celtics era, I think Keon Dooling. All right, Ime Udoka's back with us. Chris Forsberg, always a pleasure to have you, my friend. Watch him on NBC Sports Boston. Read his stuff as well. You may see him in studio, on the sideline. He could be anywhere. We're just trying to keep up with him. I'm Adam Kaufman. We'll talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.